welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Candace Chellew. I am the Senior Editor of Business Services for SmartBrief, and I am joined today by Alaina Love. She is the CEO of Purpose Linked Consulting and a sought-after expert who coaches leaders and their teams on defining their purpose and using their passions to build healthy, productive workplaces and flourish in daily life. She's the co-author of the best-selling book, The Purpose Linked Organization, and Love is certified as a senior professional in human resources and is a member of the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches. She's written for The Washington Post, Harvard Business Review, and of course, SmartBrief on leadership. And she's joining us today from her home in Raleigh, North Carolina to talk about her new book. It is called Permission to Be You, and that is what we are going to be discussing today. Welcome, Alaina. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Candace. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Tell us a little bit about why this book and why now. What is so important to learn about permission, and what was the impetus for writing this book?
Well, it's really interesting. I always used to say there's a lot of great ideas that happen around the kitchen table. This was one of them, but it was really prompted by my clients. I've been doing work around purpose and passion for almost 2 decades now with clients. And often people would come to me and say, can you do this work with my wife? Or can you do this with my husband? Or, gee, my brother-in-law is really struggling trying to figure out what to do with his life or what to do with his career. Can you help him out? And that was the first sort of indication to me that the work that I had been doing at the corporate level for so many years was having an outsized impact on the people that I was doing it with. It wasn't just affecting them as far as their understanding of themselves at work. It was affecting their understanding of themselves through all aspects of their life. And it got me thinking, what do people do who aren't in organizations that hire consultants to do this kind of work with their teams? And how do we get these skills to everybody? So this book and this process of creating a learning journey for people became my solution to that. And I hope that readers of all kinds from all walks of life will get something from this book.
Yes, I had noticed that this is not just for how you're building your career, permission to do the things, the passion that you have for work, but also the passion for parenting, a passion for being in relationships. That's fascinating. Are the permissions, is it sort of the same system?
Well, it's really interesting when I thought about where we struggle most to use our purpose and passions wisely. It sort of showed up in several different experiences that we have in our life, what I called pivotal moments that we experience in life. And sometimes those pivotal moments are wonderful, like finding a romantic partner. Sometimes those pivotal moments are challenging, like the loss of a loved one, or something that we're struggling with in our career. And so I looked at those pivotal moments and I said, what can we learn about ourselves, our purpose, our passions, and where we need to give ourselves permission to take a step forward by examining those particular issues? So that's what the book does. It goes through navigating a crisis. It goes through forming a romantic bond. It goes through going through the parenting process and trying to figure out how to be a great adult in the life of a child. It looks at navigating the learning journey, because all of us are students of something and we're all on a learning journey of some kind. It looks at how we build a career that we can thrive in by using our purpose and passions to do it. And it also looks at how we overcome loss through that process as well. And the notion of permission really, again, was a gift from my clients, because I would work with clients who had done really, really hard work to understand themselves. They had figured out what their purpose was, which is not an easy thing to do. They had figured out what their passions are, the passions that were emanating from that deeper purpose that drove them. And they felt like, I think I have everything I need now to really move forward with my life and make changes to it that I want to make with it, but I feel stuck. And I don't understand why I feel stuck. And when we dug down more deeply to understand that, we found that somewhere along the line, there was a permission that they needed to give themselves that they hadn't yet given themselves to take the first step forward. And sometimes that permission was the only thing holding them back from the life they could imagine for themselves and the life they actually had. So those permissions became really important parts of the book as well.
And Yeah, and in the book, what are the kind of permissions that we do need to give ourselves? I mean, especially as women, we're always waiting for somebody else to say we have permission, but it really is an inside job. We have to do this for ourselves. What are some of the permissions that we're talking about, and
It
how do we
absolutely is. I
practice
love
them?
the fact that you say it's an inside job because
It
it
is.
absolutely is that. Well, it starts with the title of the book, Permission to Be You, instead of trying to be someone else that, other people are designing for you or living a life that's been defined for you by others rather than the one that you want to construct for yourself. But there were other permissions that I saw very often come up over and over again with clients. Things like permission to take a risk, permission to fail, permission to be vulnerable, permission to play. Sometimes to get to where we want to be, we just need to give ourselves the opportunity to not overthink things and play with life a little bit and enjoy what we're learning from it. So there were those kinds of permissions came up over and over again. Permission to be loved and feel love and give love. All of those kinds of things came up for people repeatedly. And what I found is that each time I looked at those permissions, there was some relatively important story that I could recollect from working with a client or a group of clients where that permission really became real for me in understanding what they struggled with. Even things like permission to change your mind for some people was tough. If I'm changing my mind, does it mean I'm frivolous, that I'm indecisive? Or have I gathered more data and that more information that's helped me to understand that the direction I was going to take yesterday isn't the direction I should take today?
Yeah.
So permission became a really important aspect of this book. And I would say collectively, what I learned by writing this book and by working with clients over the years around this topic is that people really needed to understand their passions. They needed to understand a deeper purpose that was driving them and come to the realization of what that was. And they also needed to understand the value system that guided them. And those three, coupled with just granting themselves permission to take that first step, made all the difference.
Yeah. And in the book, you talk about an incident or a program that you did for a company that wanted to learn more about diversity in the wake of the death of George Floyd.
Mm.
And I'm interested in how that went, to how that came about, and how that went. But I'm also interested to know, in this changing climate around DEI, are companies still asking for those sorts of programs, so their people can have permission to talk about that and to explore how they feel about these things?
Well, I'm going to answer your first question, your last question first. And I would say, unfortunately, not as much as I'd like to see, because I do think that people are hungry to be able to discuss these issues in an open and respectful way, and they're hungry to arrive at better answers than we have so far.
Yeah.
But I think there's in recent years been a sort of waning desire for exploring those topics on the part of most organizations, and they're being sort of couched in different terms now in order to approach them in some way that feels palatable for everyone. But what I can say is that the experience of having that conversation with a team of people, a team of clients, when I did, which was shortly after the death of George Floyd, it was probably one of the most profound experiences that I've had with a client group in my career. It was a group that was in a lot of pain. People across the world, as you might remember at that time, were just flabbergasted at what had happened and shocked and dismayed that this was our reality. And this team was struggling with those feelings, and they were part of a company that had chosen at that time to sort of weigh how it was going to put its collective foot in the water around this issue. And we're treading very carefully, as many organizations did at that time. And so they were saying very little to employees. And for this team, the silence was deafening because they were in pain and struggling. And unsure of how their world was going to be shaped going forward if this was happening. In the outside world, this was certainly something that could be part of their everyday existence with people that they worked with. And so the leader of that team was brave and said, I'd like to do something for my team, but I don't know what to do. And we structured a compassionate listening session, and it was the most profound experience because everybody spoke. Everybody respected others' opinions and perspectives, and everybody learned from one another. And as one person in the group said, we're always taught at work not to talk about race or religion or politics, and we've talked about all those things today, and it's just been the best
Right.
meeting we've ever had. So it's possible to broach those tough issues in a way that's meaningful and respectful.
And it was a grand example of giving permission for people to speak, and they gave themselves permission to speak. And yes, that you see how it can be a profound experience for
Oh,
everyone.
absolutely, absolutely. But I will say also that's really important to point out that when you talk about subjects like this, which are very, very difficult, and go straight to the heart of things for people, the capacity to demonstrate vulnerability, if you're leading a session like this, or if you're part of a session like this, is really critical to getting other people to feel that it's okay to share their truth. So permission to be vulnerable was a big part of that one, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, in the book, you do offer some tools for people to identify their passion, what type of passion it is they have. So that's the passion profiler. And also at the end of each chapter, you have a pause and ponder section and some tools to help people reflect on what they've read and how it might work in their lives. Tell us a little bit about those tools.
Sure. Well, first of all, I wanted to build a learning companion for this journey that I was taking the reader on through this book. And it's a commitment on the part of any reader to say, I'm going to delve into a book of any kind, and I'm going to try to learn something about myself through that material. So I wanted to give them a host of tools, a host of really good tools that I have used with clients over the years. And whether or not they have access to a professional coach or a professional consultant, they would have access to these tools. One of those tools is called the Passion Profiler, and the book offers a discount code to take one of what will be 3 versions of the Passion Profiler available to the reader. One is a Passion Profiler for self-awareness. There's a Passion Profiler for romantic relationships. And later this year, there will be a Passion Profiler for students as well. So with that discount code, you have access to one of 3 of those versions of the tool. And the Passion Profiler is really designed to do what it sounds like it does. It identifies and measures the most important passions for you. And there are 10 passion archetypes that we all have in us to greater or lesser degrees. But the trick is understanding which are our top 3 passions, because they kind of define how we show up in life and how we think, the strengths we're likely to enjoy, the vulnerabilities we might be more subject to, and most importantly, they help us understand the environments in which we're likely to thrive. So of those 10 passion archetypes, understanding what your top 3 are becomes really, really important as you navigate the rest of the book, because it helps you understand who am I and how might I respond during these certain pivotal moments, and how have I responded in the past when I've faced these moments in my own life. At the end of every chapter, there are a set of reflection questions in the pause and ponder section meant to have the reader really examine, what did I take away from what I just read? What's most important to me? And it could be, for some people, there was one line in that chapter that really made a difference for you, and that prompted in you the thought process of, here's something I want to work on or learn more about. And then what I've done is build on our website, permissiontobeYouBook.com, something called the Reader's Companion Toolkit. And the reader will have free access to a variety of different reflection tools, assessment tools, and planning tools that they can use to create their own plan for their life going forward. So hopefully there's just a coach in a box with all of those materials, and someone to kind of guide you virtually on your journey to understanding yourself with more complete joy and celebration about who you are rather than the feeling that you have to go fix something. If there's anything this book is not, it's not a tool for here's what you need to fix. It's a tool for here's what you need to celebrate about who you already are and what you have already accomplished.
All right. Well, and that sounds wonderful. Alaina Love, thank you for joining us here on SmartBrief for this interview. And I am certain that your book is available in all formats and major booksellers.
Everywhere books are sold, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Alaina Love. She's the CEO of Purpose Linked Consulting, and the name of her new book is Permission to Be You. Check it out.